Dorian Kane stood in the shadows of the dimly lit war room, his gaze fixed on the projected image of General Kothier, towering above the assembly. The Korv leader, with his pale, luminescent skin and cold eyes, addressed the human officers gathered for the briefing with the arrogance of a conqueror. "We've tracked the remnants of your so-called heroes," Kothier sneered, his voice smooth but laced with contempt. "Foolish tales passed down like outdated myths. Do you truly believe your legends have meaning? That some savior once rose from your pathetic species to fight back against a force far beyond your understanding?" The room fell silent. Dorian clenched his fists at his sides, barely able to control the urge to storm forward and silence the alien's mocking tone. It was a regular scene, one Dorian had become all too familiar with. The Korv had invaded humanity's colonies years ago, their technological superiority overwhelming. But the mockery? That was new. Kothier's words weren't just about strategy. They were about belittling everything humanity had fought for, and Dorian couldn't stand it. His mind drifted to the memory of his late wife and daughter, their faces burned into his memory, lost in the chaos of the early days of the invasion. His fingers trembled. The Korv thought humanity weak. They thought they were gods. It was an arrogance that Dorian couldn't ignore any longer. "Do you mock us because you fear us, Kothier?" Dorian's voice cut through the still air, commanding the attention of everyone in the room. Kothier's sharp eyes flicked to Dorian. The sneer on his face only deepened. "Ah, the human general. How predictable. You come in here, seething with rage over forgotten fables." Kothier chuckled, his voice echoing through the war room like the rumble of distant thunder. "I'd rather live by a myth than drown in the reality of your pride," Dorian spat. "You underestimate us, but I assure you, we have something you can never take away. Our humanity. Our will to survive. And the legends you mock? They're not just stories. They're the backbone of our existence." The room went deathly silent. Dorian could feel the eyes of his fellow officers boring into him. The words of his speech rang hollow in his own ears. What was he trying to prove? Was he trying to convince himself? But the truth was undeniable. His heart still carried the weight of humanity's history, its unsung heroes, the sacrifices that built everything they had left. Kothier took a slow step forward, his commanding presence filling the room. "You still believe in these old tales? Tell me, Dorian, what good has your humanity done for you? Your civilization is crumbling. You can't even defend your colonies. You resort to myths to comfort yourselves." A tense silence followed. The room seemed to close in around Dorian. He could feel the weight of every word Kothier spoke pressing down on him, squeezing the air from his lungs. A fellow officer, Major Elaine Harris, spoke up, her voice soft but firm. "Enough, Kothier. You've done your damage. If you want to mock us, fine. But we won't stand by and watch as you degrade the very essence of what keeps us fighting." Kothier's lips twisted into a smile. "Degrade? No, Major. I'm simply exposing the weakness you cling to. These heroes you speak of are nothing more than echoes of a distant, insignificant past." He turned to the projected map, as if dismissing them entirely. "Your resistance is futile." The words hung in the air like poison, each one a calculated strike meant to break their resolve. Dorian's jaw tightened. He had heard enough. He had no intention of letting the Korv mock what he held dear. "General," Dorian said, his voice quiet but resolute. "We won't stand for this. The Korv may have their strength, their technology, but they lack the one thing that made us human in the first place, the ability to endure, to rise again." Kothier raised an eyebrow, intrigued now. "And what exactly do you propose, Dorian? Another futile attack? A show of force?" Dorian's eyes narrowed. "No. We fight with something far stronger. We fight with the truth." Kothier's smile faltered. "Truth? What truth?" he asked, as if the word itself was foreign to him. "The truth that the legends are real," Dorian replied. "Humanity has faced monsters far greater than you, and we've beaten them. You may think you're the end of us, but you're wrong. The real strength of humanity isn't in our weapons. It's in our spirit. It's in our legends. You mock them at your peril. The Korv general's face twisted in disbelief. I'm tired of this nonsense. Your myths will be erased, just like your species. With a flick of his wrist, the projected map dissolved, and the image of the human resistance was replaced by a list of Korv objectives. Go ahead, Kothier, Dorian challenged. Erase us. But know this, you can never erase what we stand for. Kothier said nothing for a moment, his piercing gaze lingering on Dorian. He finally turned to leave, his footsteps echoing across the room. Prepare yourselves, humans. You will learn the true meaning of weakness soon enough. As the room emptied, Dorian stood there, unmoving. The anger that had surged in him moments ago now settled into something more purposeful. He knew the battle was no longer just about fighting the Korv, it was about reclaiming humanity's place in the galaxy. Dorian, Major Harris said, her voice softer now. You can't fight this alone. He looked at her, his eyes hardening. I don't intend to. It's time we show them what humanity is capable of. He turned and walked out of the room, the weight of the past pushing him forward. The journey ahead would not be easy. But it was one he had to take, for himself, for his fallen family, and for the future of every human still alive. The mockery had only just begun. The corridors of the human base on Zalith were dimly lit, the only sound the echo of boots against metal floors. Dorian Kane moved swiftly through the maze of steel, his thoughts preoccupied by the conversation with General Kothier. The alien's mocking words replayed in his mind. Foolish tales. Childish stories. Dorian's hand flexed involuntarily, remembering Kothier's smug expression as if mocking his very humanity was a victory. The truth gnawed at him, the Korv underestimated them, but that arrogance would be their downfall. He was determined to find what had been hidden, to expose the strength Kothier so carelessly dismissed. He turned a corner and entered a small, unassuming lab, where an older woman hunched over a set of ancient texts. Dr. Celia Grace was one of the few historians who had dedicated her life to studying humanity's pre-invasion past. Her age and frailty were at odds with the sharpness of her intellect. Dorian, Dr. Grace greeted without looking up, her voice raspy but clear. I've deciphered some of the symbols from the relic you brought me. Dorian dropped the worn artifact onto the table. The relic, a carved stone disc, had been found deep within the ruins of an old human outpost. The markings were unlike any known language, and yet they were unmistakably human in origin. I need answers, Celia, Dorian said, his voice low, his urgency palpable. Kothier's mockery of our past, it can't stand. These myths they laugh at, they have to mean something. You're our last chance to uncover the truth. Dr. Grace finally lifted her head, her tired eyes meeting his. I've been waiting for this moment, Dorian. The myths you hold so dear? They're not just stories. They're a warning. A warning? Dorian repeated, his brow furrowing. He hadn't expected that. The human race didn't just fight for survival during the early wars, Dr. Grace continued, her fingers tracing the markings. We fought gods. Not gods as you imagine them, but something far worse, beasts of immense power, whose very presence reshaped entire galaxies. Dorian's stomach churned. The Varinthians? Dr. Grace nodded gravely. The very same. The legends tell of a time when humans were nearly wiped out, but the truth has been buried, hidden by those who feared what humanity could become. They won. They erased the history, kept it locked away. The gravity of her words hit Dorian like a punch to the chest. He leaned forward, grasping the edge of the table. And what happened to them? These gods? They were defeated, Dr. Grace said simply. By us. Dorian blinked, unsure if he had heard her correctly. By humans? Yes, Dorian. By humans, she repeated. They were more than warriors. They were beings of unimaginable power. And we defeated them, not with weapons or technology, but with our will. With our belief. The same belief you're now trying to reignite. The revelation made Dorian's pulse quicken. He'd heard rumors of the legendary human hero, Aaron, a name passed down through whispered tales, but had never believed them to be anything more than fantasy. Aaron, the one who had led humanity to victory against the Varinthians. The one who had been written out of history. You're saying Aaron wasn't just a myth? He was real? Dorian's voice was rough, almost incredulous. Not only him, Dr. Grace replied. There were others. A whole group of heroes, soldiers, and civilians alike. But the story didn't end with the Varinthians. They were destroyed, and humanity erased the memory to keep the galaxy from fearing us. Those who remained, the ones who knew the truth, were silenced. Dorian's hands clenched, his knuckles white. So, the Korv, they know about this? Dr. Grace paused. They must. They have advanced knowledge of human history, older than we can even comprehend. They may have feared the Varinthians once, but they've grown to believe that if humanity ever remembers its past, the galaxy will no longer be safe. Then why mock us? Dorian asked, pacing now. Why belittle our history if they know what we're capable of? Because they think they've wiped us out, Dr. Grace said softly. They've never truly faced us at full strength. They know the power lies in the forgotten past, and they think they've snuffed it out. What they don't realize is that the memory is stirring again. Dorian's mind raced. The Korv had underestimated humanity's will, and now they were trying to erase it. The myth of Aaron and the other forgotten heroes wasn't just a relic of a bygone era, it was a weapon waiting to be reclaimed. Then we need to bring the truth to light, Dorian said, determination hardening in his voice. We need to show Kothier what humanity is capable of, remind him that he's not the only one who can command power. We'll dig deeper into these texts, find more relics, and if we have to, we'll fight the Korv with our past. Dr. Grace nodded. I'll continue translating the relics. But know this, Dorian, reawakening the power of the past will come at a cost. The Varinthians weren't just defeated. They were eradicated, but there's always something left behind. Something dangerous. Dorian's gaze never wavered. I'm ready. Then you must be prepared, Dr. Grace warned, her voice tinged with a subtle fear. The truth won't just change the Korv's perception of you. It will change the way you see yourselves. And once you know, you cannot unknow. The burden of that knowledge is heavy, Dorian. I've carried burdens before, Dorian replied, his tone steady. I'll carry this one too. With that, he turned to leave, the weight of their conversation settling on his shoulders. The path ahead was clear, the past was alive, and it was time to wake it up. The Korv may have been right about one thing, they would soon learn just how dangerous humanity could be. As he walked down the corridor, his mind kept returning to the same question, what else had been hidden from them? He didn't have the answers yet, but he was going to find them. And when he did, the galaxy would finally understand that humanity wasn't just a species to be feared, it was one that could destroy gods. Dorian didn't know what came next, but he felt the weight of the past stirring within him, ready to fight for its place in the future. The Korv had no idea what they were about to face. The air inside the command center buzzed with tension. Dorian stood before a holographic map of the Korv stronghold, Zalatha's northern fortress, their nerve center. The mission was simple in theory: infiltrate, expose the hidden truth, and destroy any remaining trace of the Korv's dominance. But Dorian knew better than to think it would be easy. This wasn't just a raid, it was a war on everything the Korv believed about humanity. The stakes were higher than any mission he had faced before. This wasn't just about survival, it was about reclaiming humanity's lost legacy. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of machinery. His team, handpicked for their resolve and ability to operate in the most dangerous of conditions, waited for him to speak. Major Elaine Harris, Lieutenant James O'Connor, and Sergeant Aidan Brooks. All veterans, each with their own reasons for being here, but united by a single goal: to show the Korv that humanity was more than a footnote in galactic history. We move tonight, Dorian said, his voice low, steady. We have one shot at this. Kothier believes he's broken us, but he's wrong. We've been hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right moment. That moment is now. We're going to take everything he holds dear and leave him with a reality he can't escape. Elaine's eyes met his, sharp and focused. And when we break through, we expose the truth. We show them what humanity can do when we stop playing their game. Exactly, Dorian replied, nodding. We've dug up the past, but it's not enough to just know. We need to make them see it. Once they know what we're capable of, once they understand that their greatest fear is already here, they won't have the courage to fight anymore. James, always the pragmatic one, glanced at the map, then back at Dorian. So, the plan is to infiltrate the stronghold, get the archives, and broadcast the information about Aaron and the Varinthians to every Korv in the galaxy? Dorian nodded. Not just to the Korv. We'll broadcast it to every ally they have. The truth isn't just ours to protect anymore. Once it's out, there's no going back. Aiden, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. And when they come for us? We're not walking out of this without a fight. No, Dorian said, his voice hardening. But we'll fight on our terms. We'll make them regret ever thinking we were easy prey. The plan was risky, no, suicidal, but it was the only chance they had to strike back. They couldn't afford to keep hiding. The Korv's arrogance had reached its peak, and it was time to tear it down. The assault on the fortress was swift, the team moving with precision, slipping through the shadows of the massive compound. The night was their ally, and the Korv were oblivious to the storm about to hit them. Their suits, specially designed for stealth operations, allowed them to blend into the darkness, their every move calculated. Dorian's mind remained focused. Every step brought him closer to the heart of the Korv's operations. The heavy pulse of adrenaline thrummed in his veins, but he didn't allow it to distract him. His mind stayed sharp, the mission always at the forefront of his thoughts. They reached the central command center without incident. Dorian signaled for the team to spread out, scanning for any signs of resistance. The silence was unnerving. It was almost too easy. Major, clear the entrance, Dorian whispered to Elaine, who moved without hesitation. Her weapon drawn, she scanned the perimeter before giving the signal that the way was clear. Dorian approached the data terminal at the center of the room, the key to exposing everything. He plugged in the ancient relic they had retrieved weeks earlier, now re-engineered to interface with the Korv's systems. The terminal flickered to life, displaying encrypted files, military records, and, most importantly, data about humanity's forgotten victories. Let's see what Kothier's hiding, Dorian muttered as he began accessing the files. His fingers flew across the controls, each moment feeling like a step closer to their objective. But as the data streamed onto the screen, his heart pounded in his chest. The images, the reports, they confirmed everything he had feared. Got it, Dorian said, his voice steady despite the rising tension. He looked up at the team. We've found the information. But there's more here than we expected. The Korv weren't just afraid of humanity, they were running from something. Elaine stepped closer, her gaze fixed on the screen. What do you mean? Humanity wasn't just a threat because of our war tactics or ingenuity. The Varinthians had their own weapons, beasts of unimaginable power. The Korv, they were once part of a greater alliance. They knew that if humanity remembered how to fight, how to unleash what we were capable of, they would have no chance. James cursed under his breath. They've been hiding this all along? Keeping the galaxy in the dark? Dorian nodded. They didn't just want to conquer us. They wanted to make sure humanity never remembered its true strength. They thought they could keep us in the dark forever. Aiden was already moving toward the terminal's broadcast system, his fingers flying over the interface. It's time to end this, he said, pressing the button that would send the truth to every Korv communication channel in the galaxy. For a moment, the room stood still. The team could hear the soft hum of the terminal systems as they connected to the larger network. Then, a blast of static followed by a piercing transmission. The truth was out. The galaxy would know. But just as they started to relax, the alarms blared. Red lights flooded the room, and the deep, guttural voice of General Kothier echoed through the corridors. You've made a grave mistake, humans, Kothier's voice rang out, amplified by the Korv system. The galaxy will learn what happens when you awaken the past. You think you've won? This is only the beginning. Dorian's pulse spiked. They're here, he growled. Time to move. The team sprinted toward the exit, the sound of Korv soldiers closing in behind them. A barrage of gunfire erupted, forcing them to take cover. Dorian led the charge, his mind focused on one thing: survival. As the Korv forces closed in, Dorian turned to his team. We may not make it out alive, but we've done it. The truth is out. Let them come. The battle raged. The Korv soldiers were relentless, but they were unprepared for the fury of humanity. For all their strength and technology, they had never faced a force like this. A force built on centuries of sacrifice, courage, and the unshakable belief that humanity would never be erased. Dorian fought with everything he had. This wasn't just a battle for survival. It was a fight for every fallen hero, every forgotten victory. He would not let the Korv forget who they were up against. As the final explosion rocked the fortress, Dorian looked up at the smoke-filled sky, knowing that the galaxy would never be the same. The past had been unleashed, and there was no turning back.